pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another book tag. This one is the My Pleasure book tag, which was originated by Steve Partridge. If you don't already follow Steve, you should. He's got a very chatty, amiable energy and is not hard on the eyes. And he's most famous recently for doing a live Sunday his time, Monday morning my time. He does a YouTube live where you can log in and chat with him and stuff. I've only managed to wake up in time. I think it starts at 5 a.m. Tokyo time. But anyway, it's lots of fun. So please check out his channel. He reads a wide variety of stuff, and he's also a published writer. And this is his original tag, the My Pleasure book tag. I've wanted to do it since he first launched it, but I've had trouble with some of the questions. So I'm going to start out wobbly right out of the gate with prompt number 1. Think. A book that made you think hard. Well, maybe I don't like to think hard, but I've thought long and hard about this prompt, and I can't think of a damn book that made me think hard. Books that make me think hard usually end up being books that I bail on. Aside from, obviously, when you're reading a book, you're thinking, you're processing, you're reacting. But I think he means something more than that, and I'm drawing a blank. So I'm going to skip that one. 2. Love. A book that broke or mended your heart. I'm an emotional reader, much more than I am an intellectual reader, which is why I had so much trouble with the first one. So, my favorite novel in the whole world is this one. Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Tien. And this one did break my heart. This was a slow read for me in 2016. I read it over about a 4-month period, maybe 3-month period, and it broke my heart. And it did put it back together again, in a way. It's about a group of musicians who are either family members or friends that lived through the end of World War II and the Chinese Revolution and on into the Cultural Revolution. And it is a heartbreaking story. This is a book that's not for everybody. A lot of readers who I'm close friends with didn't like it, but this is my favorite novel of all time. In a very dense and intellectually and emotionally satisfying way, this story broke my heart and opened me to Chinese literature and Chinese history and music in a way that I never had been before. Number 3, Eat. A book that nourishes you. I squirmed a bit at both the verb and the verb tense here. The verb is nourish, and nourishes, like on an ongoing way. But the only book I've read in the last few years that I would say qualifies is a memoir by an Indigenous Canadian writer. His name is Richard Wagamese, and his memoir was called One Native Life. And I read it, I believe, at the beginning of 2017. And I loved it. It's bite-sized pieces of autobiographical reflections paired with Wagamese in nature. Now, I'm not a spiritual person, and this seemed like it would be the furthest thing from anything that I might enjoy, and I absolutely loved it in a way that was really centering and calming and all those words that I don't really like to use. So, that's it. Now, I haven't read anything else by him that I liked. I bailed on one of his novels after that. I was disappointed, but more importantly, I was heartbroken that he died at the age of like 60 or 58 from cancer, just a few months after I read his memoir. And he's got one more novel coming out, and my mum gave me Ragged Company for Christmas, and that's her favorite novel by him, so I look forward to reading that. But I really loved his memoir. 4. Laugh. A book that brought a little comic relief. This is also an interesting prompt for me because I don't like to read humorous stuff. I read serious stuff. But I haven't talked about this book too much on my channel, but it was in my introductory video as one of my top reads of the first half of 2017. Map and Lucia by E.F. Benson. This is a 1935 novel, and I love this so much. It made me laugh. It cracked me up. It was so intellectually stimulating, and I would contrast it with The other, the Jeeves comedic fiction of the same era, or roughly the same era, by Wodehouse, which was like bubblegum. One story was just like the next one, and I read two, and I chortled, and then the third one I was bored, and from there on it was all boredom because they're all the same. But this was a really intellectually stimulating, witty, wise humor about these two ladies, and it has a special place. It's had a special place in my heart ever since, and in fact, I am going to be buddy reading this biography of the author E.F. Benson this year sometime, and rereading as the second half of the buddy read Mappa Nuccia, because I loved it that much. It's hilarious! Number 5. Sex, a book that explores or contains sexuality that doesn't make you cringe. Now this is a challenge to Alan Hollinghurst. Writes about sex very well. This is his most recent novel. It's just come out in the US. This is the UK edition. The Sparsholt Affair, published in the UK at the end of last year. This was a failure of a novel as far as I was concerned, but if you take it's written in about how many sections? 5 sections. And the first section is a work of beauty, and it's in a very erotically charged story. Stand alone. I think in years to come, especially if anybody asks me what they should do, they should just tear out part 1, publish it as a novella, and let it stand on its own, because it's breathtaking and really, really erotic. The second section is pretty good too, and the rest of it's crap. Throughout his career, Alan Hollinghurst has written about sex and sexuality quite well. I would also say Jonathan Franzen, but I haven't read him for many years, and my tastes have changed a lot in the last couple of years, so I don't know how I'd feel now, but when I was reading The Corrections and what was the next one after that, I've forgotten, I thought he wrote about sex really well. Who knows how I'd feel today. Another one that I read 10 years ago, Mila Goldberg's Bee Season. It was made into an awful movie with that asshole actor, what's his name? But don't watch the movie! The book is wonderful! And there is a teenage boy, I think it's the spelling bee protagonist's brother, and she writes about adolescent male sexuality in a way that was both erotic for me to read, but also just like the best portrayal of adolescent male sexuality I've ever read. How did she do that? So I love that, and it was a wonderful novel. Mila Goldberg wrote another novel that was very different, that got poor reviews, and I never bothered it, but I hope she writes more, because I loved Bee Season. Have any of you read Bee Season? And I hadn't thought to include this, but I see it's on top of my pile. I would say this is a bit of a Marmite book, but Edouard Louis' The End of Eddie, apparently it's now part of the competition of the Tournament of Books, which I've never understood the Tournament of Books, because it has something to do with sports. What is sports? What are tournaments? I have no idea. But I thought this book's portrayal of, I think it starts out preteen, and teenage gay male sexuality was masterful in depicting the intersection of shame and sexuality. Maybe the best I've read. It's not a perfect novel, but its depiction of that is masterful. I had a lot to say about sex. Aren't you surprised? Rest, a book that gave you peace, reflection, or just calms you down. This one left me cold because I don't read for those things. Those are not any of the reasons that I read. So I will just say Richard Wagamese's memoir, One Native Life. Finally, 7, Experience, a book that introduced you to a new subject or shifted your perspective. And I would say that would be my top read of 2018 so far, which I won't be surprised if it ends up being my top read of the year at the end of the year. And that's Akwaeke Emeze's debut novel, Freshwater, which is about, if you're going to do a one-line synopsis to a Western reader, it's about a Nigerian Tamil woman with multiple personality disorder, or the more modern psychiatric term is what? I blanked. I'm embarrassed. I didn't think to write that down, but really it's about a Nigerian Igbo god being uncomfortably incarnated, and various deities take over this female protagonist. It sounds like the kind of book that I wouldn't like, and I absolutely loved it, and it shifted my perspective on mental illness, it shifted my perspective on African literature, it shifted my perspective on narrative technique and what's possible, what stories can be told and how they can be told through the form of the novel just blew my mind, and my mind is still blown. That's it. Okay, so that was fun. Thank you, Steve, for the great tag. And I'm going to tag a bunch of people. I don't think any of these people have been tagged or have done this video. I tagged Robert of Barter, Hordes, Jen of Remembered Reads, Curtis of Curtis Books and Films, Justin of Ghost Reader, Britta Böhler, Ange of Beyond the Pages, and Lukas of Luukashist Books. But also, I open the tag up to any of you who might like to do it. Thanks for watching.